So I have created a new project and I called it example in IntelliJ, right? I have IntelliJ IDE. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through this anatomy of a Java project or a Java app, a Java program. Let's go line by line and let's see exactly what we get. So we have a public class main. That's what we get here with this example project. I got this. I didn't have to type this. And I have a hello world example. It's just printing hello world to the console. So let's go through line by line and build on this. So we have a public static void main. That's the entry point to the program. Any class that has this defined, this public static void main, it's going to be the entry point to the program. You can have many classes, right? You can have 20 or 30 classes or 5 classes, whatever. But the one that we get to run directly is the one that has this public static void main. That's going to take in an args parameter, and it's going to be an array of type string. We're going to talk more about this in a second, but just know that just like many other languages, we do have some parameters that we could potentially be sending in to the main program if we run it in the command line, for example. So bear with me on that. I'll show you an example shortly. So what happened? So this is the IDE. I have the project on my left, all these different files. Basically, the different file that I'm concerned about is this main file. That's what I have created here. I can create other ones too, like by right-clicking and going to new Java class, and there's many other things we could do, but we're going to be dealing with classes, so I'll be doing that in later videos. But for now, we can right-click on this main class, say run main, and what we get is, what we should get is this hello world example. Right, that's what's being printed here to the console. So let's talk about this in a second. System.out.println. Well, this is built in Java, and we have access to this object, which has with dot notation, we can get to this out object, and then with dot notation again, we can get to this method. And a method is a function that happens to be attached to an object or a class. And that's why we call them methods. So everything by definition in Java is a method. Why? Because everything is an object in Java. So with that being said, that's where we're going to leave that conversation about objects. But let's talk a little bit about this string array. And we know Java, by the way, it is a compiled language, meaning that this source code that I have right now here, when I ran it, that's not what actually runs. What happens behind the scenes is that this file gets compiled over to a bytecode file, an executable file, and then that file gets executed by the program, by the computer, and that's what we get. So just to show you that really quickly, what that looks like, if you were to look at the source file here of the main.java file, this file here, what we can do is we can compile that. Let's just see what happens behind the scenes, right? This is what Java, the IDE is doing for us automatically. It's compiling, and with Java C, I can compile that Java class, and that Java C command, it's going to get me this main.class. Now, if I were to look at that class, you can see it would be all gibberish because it would not mean anything to us. See it anyway? Yes, I want to see it. It looks like this. It's all gibberish, but we don't care about that. We just want to run it. So to run it, we can say Java main, and I'll run it, and we'll get the hello world, right? But one thing we could do is we can say, hey, Java main, well, let's print out what this args thing is, right? So we can say something like, hey, for int I equals 0, and this is just a for loop in Java. For I equals 0 and I is less than args.length. Go ahead and increment I by 1, and let's just system.out.println args at the index I. So I know this is not so advanced, not so intro for the moment, but just bear with me. It is kind of simple still. It's just a for loop, and so this is good that we're reviewing it anyway. A traditional for loop that has some variable initialized to 0, and then some condition while this variable I is less than the length of the args that's being passed in. That's an array. We know it's an array of string. Well, then go ahead and do this, and afterwards go ahead and increment it by 1. And keep going until this condition is not true anymore, which will go through all the elements of the array. So let's save this, and let's go ahead and compile that again, and we'll run that. But this time we'll run it like this. This is ed testing now. Something like that. And we'll hit enter. And what can you see? Well, you can see that we are executing this main file, right, the executable, but then I'm printing all the arguments that's being passed over to this application, to this, via the command line. So what am I printing? I'm printing everything else, right? Like hello world is the first thing that we print in line 3, but then I print each element. This is ed testing now. And so that's exactly what we get. So again, a really quick video just showing you an intro to a Java program. What's the public static void main? What is that? What does it do? Well, we know that's the entry point to the program. Why do we need this array of type string? Well, we know, just like in other languages, we have an ability to go ahead and parse out the parameters, right? The arguments that were passed in via the command line. And that's super useful too. So we'll continue from here. I hope you found this useful.